A very warm welcome to everybody. This is Pavan Kumar. I am an urban researcher and a former data journalist working in urban affairs with India's Pen. So, for his Paul Echo, today we are joined by a very eminent personality and an urbanist himself, Mr. Ashwin Mahesh from Bengaluru. Namaskaram.
Hello.
Three, two, one, zero.
I mean, not many know that he was also working with NASA before he joined the citizens movement for Bengaluru and making it better. So, given your experience with NASA and the fact that we recently saw the Chandrayan 3 making it to the south pole of the moon, how do you see this kind of success for India? Take a thought from that.
Well, it was many years ago that I was a climate scientist, but I guess I should say three things. One, it's definitely a huge technological achievement to demonstrate parity with other global space programs in terms of what can be pulled off, and definitely it'll provide the impetus for the next set of things that the space missions can do. In many space organizations, there's a distinction between the technologists and the scientists. So the Indian space mission is still a technology mission. It's slowly evolving into a science mission as well. And what I mean by that, even the people that we call ISRO scientists, I mean, no, what we are referring primarily to people who are involved in the launch and navigation systems side of that. Whereas as the programs mature, we will have a greater focus on the science that is possible because of these things. Ultimately, we are going to the moon for a reason. We're putting satellites in orbit for a reason, and those reasons will also become more and more important in the future, especially as the launch capabilities become more routine in some way. Um, but this is kind of an exciting thing. This will propel interest in manned missions as well, and all sorts of other things. Hopefully, there'll be more funding for science as well. Unfortunately, funding for science and technology is low in India, and what there is has tended to go into the government's own institutions. Um, and a lot of the data that is collected by the science today isn't really in the public domain. So if it is in the public domain, a lot can be done with it. Survey of India, ISRO, and many other institutions have mountains of data that could propel a lot of research, not only in other educational institutions but also in markets. I think these next phases will arrive, but those are the ones that will bring us to much greater competitive advantage from the program. But this is another thing to notice. This is also a sign that when an institution is left alone to progress on its own capabilities and merit, and there isn't much political interference in it, then a lot can be done. There's no reason why Indian institutions and people can't do the same things that are done elsewhere in the world. But in that sense, ISRO is more of an exception than the norm, that it's been left to succeed, allowed to succeed, as it were. We need more parts of the Indian economy, Indian society, Indian research to also be allowed to succeed. But hopefully, something like this will provide impetus for those things as well.
Right, right. So, given your experience at NASA, so you were at NASA in various roles, right? Particularly in the GIS and the urban listing. So, how do you see this kind of? So, a lot of talk is always on about colonizing the moon. I think some have even gone further to colonize Mars. They want to even do that, and some of them are really. It does tell us that there's no limit to human imagination. In that context, how do you see a city on the moon? Like if we all see cities on Earth, but what if we were to take it forward and see how would Indians put a create a city in the moon if they were to do so?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of countries still need to create proper cities here on Earth itself
Yeah,
before
yeah,
they attempt those kinds of things. But the way I look at it, I was a climate scientist when I was at NASA, and the climate crisis is one of the big challenges that we face today. And in a sense, I, I I think of that as finally coming home to roost. The cities are the drivers of the economic trends and patterns that are partly or significantly responsible for the climate crisis, because a lot of the consumption today happens in cities.
right,
And increasingly people are realizing that if we make consumption in cities more sustainable, then we can perhaps begin to have positive impacts on sustainability as well. I think if you look at genetics, plate tectonics, quantum mechanics, DNA, and whatever I guess I said genetics. In many fields, you can look back over the last 100 years and find that the science today or the scientific body of knowledge today is incredibly different from what it was even 100 years ago,
right.
right? So I think it would be a little futile for us to say that we know what the science of the next 100 years might be. Um, when I used to run the electric taxi company, I would say to people that in 4 years or 5 years, you will have an electric car that will charge in 10 minutes and will go more than 1,000 kilometers. And it seems implausible today, but it's not that difficult. It's I think we should never bet against the science. The frontiers of many things in science continue to be expanded, and more new things appear each year, and the speeds of discovery are also getting more rapid. I expect that one day in the future, it may be possible to do certain things that we don't imagine today. But the universe is also incredibly vast. It's not, I mean, even the moon is like some 240,000 miles away. So it, it's a huge distance, and that's the nearest thing. Anything else that you want to go to is months away, at even a nearby planet, or maybe even years. And if you want to go outside the solar system, we're talking about serious
Right, right.
distances. So the cosmos is not like anything that we can imagine in the usual way based on our daily experiences.
And I believe to an extent it's much more what human imagination has definitely has no boundaries. But I think the universe's imagination of things it's much bigger than what we even assume.
Yeah, yeah, we can only imagine things within a certain framework of what we are familiar with, and therefore, who knows the definition of living organ not definition the kinds of living organisms that you might find elsewhere may be nothing of the sort that we have here. They may not rely on the same chemical or biological inputs or building blocks. I think these are questions for the future.
Yeah, and I believe people have the science fiction writers. They can be given a run for their money by the people who want to say that we want to colonize the moon. I think the science fiction writers will be given a run for their money on this. That's all for today, and thanks a lot, Mr. Mahesh, for engaging with me and with this channel. It was absolute pleasure hearing from you.
No, thank you very much, Pawan.